Hello and welcome to another AKT podcast. I know it's been a little bit of time, but leading up to our next AKT, you'll be hearing at least a weekly episode. So in this scenario, you have a 35-year-old HGV driver who has collapsed while standing in a roller coaster queue. He describes a very typical vasovagal faint episode which was likely triggered from prolonged standing on a warm sunny day. He reports a transient loss of consciousness with immediate recovery. This is his first episode of vasovagal syncope. What would be the most appropriate driving advice for this patient? So in order to answer this question, we need to quickly cover different driving licenses within the UK. So you have our Group 1 licensing, which is the normal car and motorcycle use, which is likely the license that you and I hold. And then you have the Group 2 licensing, which is for bus and lorry drivers. So in this case, the patient is likely to have acquired a Group 2 license. Now, the DVLA have an excellent PDF guide on assessing fitness to drive, which can be accessed online. I've accessed this in December 2021. So if you're listening at a much later date, please do reference back for up-to-date guidance. So in terms of the answer for this question, given that this is the patient's first episode and that it's occurred whilst standing, and the fact that it's very, very typical of a vasovagal syncope episode, then you can advise the patient that they must not drive and that they must notify the DVLA immediately for further guidance. So had this been a Group 1 driving license, then actually there would be no restrictions because it's a simple vasovagal faint. Similarly, had the collapse occurred when the patient was sitting, then the advice would actually be very different. Had the patient been sitting and had a vasovagal type event, then in that case the patient would actually not be able to drive for at least 3 months. They must notify the DVLA, who will then require further investigation for an identifiable or treatable cause. Now, driving guidance is actually really, really important. It will often feature under the administration section for the AKT, and we do go through this in our admin course. Now, this scenario is also very helpful for the RCA as well, because it's important to consider patient's occupation under the psychosocial part of the RCA, and in actual fact, something like this would also add towards the complexity factor for the RCA as well. So I hope you found this helpful. We're going to follow up with another driving type scenario in the next podcast. This podcast is hosted by wellmedic.co.uk. We help GP trainees pass the AKT.